Welcome everyone. My name is Andy Fittall. I'm working for the Inner West Community Foundation and a special project called the Help Desk, which is a project that was created in conjunction with the West Footscray Traders Association to identify the critical issues facing business in West Footscray and Greater 3012 area in originally a post-COVID environment. And now, as it seems, a COVID environment. So although some of these issues are the same as always, we wanted to identify the ones that were the really pressing issues now. So from the results of some surveys that we conducted and some interviews, SEO was identified as something that people really wanted to know a lot more about. So today we are going to run a workshop on SEO presented by an expert in the field. We've got Kim Oberauer from Australian Website Services, who will be taking us through SEO, and we'll be demystifying SEO with our SEO and digital marketing fundamentals video. Before I hand over to Kim, I'm going to place a link to a survey in the messages section there. Please, at the conclusion of the event or after you finish, can you please just fill in the survey? Just let us know how it went and if you got some value out of those or out of the session. And you can also let us know what it is that you need in the future, because we've got our ears open and listening to business in West Footscray and surrounds. So I'll just, I'm going to hand over to you now, Kim. Thank you so much for taking the time out this evening to teach us all about SEO.
Thank you, Andy. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So as Andy was saying, we're going to talk about SEO, and in particular demystifying SEO, making sure that you all have a good understanding of how it is, what it does, how it works, and how you can apply it to your business going forward. Myself, I've been working in the digital space all of my working life. So for 30 years now, I've been working in the digital arena. And in the last 10 years or so, focusing on what's called inbound marketing, which is those techniques and tools which is about attracting people to your business. SEO is one of them, email marketing, for example, conversion rate optimization, all of those types of techniques that are designed to attract new customers. And one key pillar of that is obviously SEO. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now. Now, Andy, Kelly, can you see that? Yep, excellent. Okay, so let's get started. So demystifying SEO, it's not as scary as some people may think. It's actually quite straightforward. And we're going to go through each of the individual items so that you have a very clear understanding of how these may apply to your business going forward. So in today's presentation, we're going to talk about the following. So what exactly is SEO? The acronym SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. How does SEO actually work? SEO and digital marketing, where does SEO fit within a digital marketing strategy? So what areas does it cover when you compare that with other different techniques that you might use to drive traffic to your website or convert people into customers? Why use SEO? Which is fundamental to all business. I think even given the situation with COVID-19, that has become even more evident in the last year or so. SEO ranking factors and signals. These are those things that you can do to prove to Google and Bing and the other search engines that your website is the #1 resource on a particular topic. So that's fundamentally what SEO is about, is making sure that Google thinks and knows that you are the best choice amongst competitors to deliver to potential viewers. And then we're going to look at what is local SEO. So local SEO is slightly different. It is SEO, but it has a few more components to it that you can leverage if you're a brick and mortar business, if you want people to come to your physical location. And then how can you improve your SEO right now to get some more customers? And finally, we're going to finish with a Q&A session. So we're going to get started here on what is SEO. Just as a point, if there are any questions, Andy, if you have anything that you'd like to maybe think that needs a bit more explanation, let me know and I'll cover that off in more detail. So what is SEO? Fundamentally, it's improving the quality and quantity of traffic to your website from search engines. So it's all of the tools, techniques, and best practices that you can implement, once again, to convince Google or the search engines that your website and your content is the #1 resource. That's the objective. So we're trying to convince Google that our website should be the first one that's displayed to potential viewers. So let's first look at a few common terms. So we've already touched on the first one here. So SEO is just short for search engine optimization. So it's making sure that the experience from our website is optimized for search engines. Organic search. So what exactly is organic search? So I'm just going to switch to another tab here, and we'll just talk about what organic search actually is. So at the moment myself, I'm in the market for a concrete driveway. I need to reconcrete my driveway. So I was doing a search for that. So at the top of the screen here that you can see, this is what's called a map pack. Now this is a special featured listing of businesses local to me, who are based on my search terms. Below here, we have a featured snippet, which comes from Google saying, these are questions that are frequently asked by people searching for this particular topic. And finally, here we get to what is called the organic search listings. So this is the listings that Google has decided and is recommending to viewers. And it differentiates itself from further down here we come, and you see the word ad here. This is paid listings. So this is paid search. This is people who are paying for their listings to appear on the homepage here, or the first page of the search results, as compared to these, which are the organic results or the organic listings, which are not paid for. These are recommendations from the search engine itself. We'll go back one step. So search engine result page. So clicking back here, this is a search engine result page. This is the first page. This is where everybody wants to be, is on the first page, because most traffic, most of the clicks come from this first page. But obviously there are many more pages. We can scroll through them here. So this is the second page, third page, etc. Usually there are 10 listings, organic listings, on every single page. Next, we have SEO ranking. So search engine optimization ranking. This is where you appear in the search result pages. So where does your business, if we were to type in a search term that relates to your business, where do you appear in these search results? Are you first? Are you fifth? Are you 100th? Are you 500th? That is your ranking. Search terms and keywords. So this is probably the bread and butter of SEO. Search terms and keywords are those terms that people are actually typing into Google. For example, here's a search term, is concrete driveway. These are the terms that people are typing into Google, which are being used to decide which websites are the best ones to display to them. So the idea is that these search terms and keywords should appear in your website based on your target audience and what you provide. Next, we have content. Now, content itself comes in many different forms. So we all know that there's written content. For example, we've got blog articles, we've got things like videos, we might have audio, you might even have downloadable PDFs, you might have things like this presentation, for example. You might even have infographics. These are all types of content, and they all provide Google with an idea of what your website is about and how it can actually fulfill the search requirements of the viewers. So don't think about content just as the written word. It's the whole spectrum of content. It could be images as well. Everything that you can possibly publish on your website is considered content and will be used by the search engines to decide how relevant your site is. Links. Links, there's different types of links, but I'm going to focus on one type of link which we call inbound links. Now, inbound links are those links from other sites to your site. Now, think of a link like a vote. Every time somebody links from their site to your site, it's like they're voting that your site is worth reading, that you have something to say and something to provide to the audience. So the more links you have back to your website from other websites, from other sources, this includes social media as well, the more links that you have that are reputable, the more votes you get, and the more highly regarded that your website will be when it comes to deciding which is the best websites to show potential viewers. On-page SEO is all of those elements, that the best practices, the technical aspects, the keywords that you do on your own website. So it's all of those activities that you can do on your website to improve your search engine optimization. And there's off-page SEO. Now, off-page SEO is all those activities that you do externally to your website. For example, link building. You might be reaching out to other organizations in your area to link back to your content. It could be guest posting, for example, on writing an article for somebody else's website, a complementary business, for example. It could be social media posts as well, which is another off-page way of driving traffic to your website. It might be creating a Pinterest board. It might be uploading, Instagram stories, for example. So there's all these ways that you can drive traffic from external sites back to your website, and this is all considered to be off-page SEO. So there's two different flavors. And lastly, there's this term, and this is getting a bit technical, but there's this idea of what's called a spider or a bot. Now, the search engines, and I'll click through to the next screen because this will explain it a bit further detail. So how does SEO actually work? So bots and indexing. Now, Google knows nothing about your website. Like if you put up a new website tomorrow, Google would know nothing about it. It wouldn't even know that it exists. Eventually, a program that's provided by Google, which is called a bot or a spider, will come to your website as if it was like a web browser, and it starts to crawl your website, which means that it lands on the home page and then it scans the content, looking for keywords and phrases, looking for images, and then looking for links inside your website, like your main menu, and then it basically traverses all of your links. And eventually it builds up a picture of your website going to each of your pages to get a good idea of what your website is actually about. That's how Google works. It sends this spider to your website pretty frequently to go and look at all of the images, the words, the documents, all of the links to create a picture of your website, which it then uploads into what's called an index. And the index is what is used by the search engine to provide results to people. So it goes in, when you type in a query up here, when I type in concrete driveway, Google goes off to its index. It scans through all of the results looking for the best possible match for the requirements for that search term. And that is fundamentally how it works. So as you can imagine, making sure that your website is really easy for the Google bot to understand and how well it is structured, so that you've got a clean main menu, a logical sort of hierarchy of information. It makes it so much easier for the Google bot to then index all of that information and then obviously to be able to display that information to potential viewers. Andy, is there any questions? Is this too fast, too slow? Any questions you think?
I don't have any questions just yet, but Just to reiterate what you're saying, it was said once that you're trying to reach two audiences with a website, aren't you? You're trying to reach your potential customers, and you're trying to reach Google.
Yeah, fundamentally, you should always write for human beings, for your ideal customer, because Google and basically the, if you like, the artificial intelligence behind it and the way that it ranks now is that it's smart enough to understand what is good human readable content. But there are technicalities that only it cares about that your viewers know nothing about. So there are some underlying infrastructure and some techniques and some technicalities that you need to work on, which are sort of irrelevant to human beings, so to your viewers. So there are two audiences, but primarily your focus should always be to write content or create images or audio or video that best meets the needs of your audience. So that's fundamentally it. So now that we've had our website indexed, how does Google decide that your website is the best website to display to potential users to fulfill their query? Like when they've typed something in, and like concrete, for example, how does it know then to go and say, these 10 businesses, these websites and these businesses are the very best at answering that question? So these are the key factors, if you like. Firstly is the content, and as we were just saying, Andy, first is the content of your website. It's making sure that it is designed for your target audience. You understand who your target audience is and what their questions and pain points are. And the idea is to provide information around those questions and those pain points. The architecture of your website, making sure that it's structured in such a way that it makes it easy for Google to go to the page and understand what it's about. So all the menu links, all the hierarchy of information makes it really easy for that tool to come, scan your website and understand it. As we said, the other side of that coin there between content or between the human viewers and Google are the technical details. Now, I won't sugarcoat this portion. There's a number of technical things that you need to do with your website to make sure that it is basically puts its best foot forward when it comes to Google indexing the content. It's things like header structure, making sure you have things like a sitemap, and we'll talk about these in greater detail in a minute, but these are the technical checkbox, if you like, checklist that you need to go through to make sure that it is fundamentally the best it can be when it comes time for it to be indexed by Google. Trust is another big indicator. Now, trust is, when we say trust, it's not necessarily about, customer service and all those types of things and the quality of your service. It's more about how many authoritative links do you have back to your website? Let's say your business was written up in the Australian newspaper and you had a link back from the Australian newspaper. The Australian has a certain level of trust associated with it. And that link back to your website also provides a certain level of trust, because they're saying, well, this organization believes that your content is worth their readers viewing. So that trust is transferable as well. Also, the trust is about the metrics of your site. How long do people stay on your site? Do they just bounce off, which means do they just come look at one page and then leave straight away? There's those types of factors that all develop a certain level of trust, and Google understands that and can actually read those signals. We talked about links before. This is making sure that you've got external links leading back to your website, and we delve into that a little bit in further detail later on. And you can't underestimate the user experience. So what we mean by the user experience is how easy is your website for a person to land on the homepage, find what they're looking for, have their questions answered, and leave satisfied with the experience. Now that comes down to a lot of different things. It's the content that you have on the website. It's how fast your website loads. That is a very important thing as well these days, is that your website needs to load quickly, because people have a lot shorter attention span these days. They won't put up with 5 or 10 second loads of a page. They'll just bounce straight off and go to one of your competitors. So making sure your page loads quickly, and making sure that it is also what's called, and we're going to delve into this a little bit further too, is responsive. Now, responsive means that your website is designed in such a way that it looks and reacts well on any type of device, whether it be on a desktop, whether it be on a laptop, whether it be on a tablet, or whether it be on a mobile phone. Your website has to perform across all of those devices. In fact, these days, there's the concept of what's called mobile first design, which means that you design a website based on the mobile experience first, and then you work up from there. So you make sure that the mobile experience is fantastic, and then you work up to tablet, and then you work up to desktop, creating more features as you go. But you must first satisfy that mobile first responsive design. But as I said, we'll go into that in a bit greater detail later on as well. So I think now that we have a fundamental understanding of what search engine optimization is, what I think would be a good idea is to look about how it fits into the digital marketing ecosystem, if you like. So where does search engine optimization sit with other digital marketing elements? Now, this diagram I've got here is not every single possible channel, every different possible advertising or marketing strategy that you might want to implement, but this gives you an overview of the basic process. So on the left-hand side here, we've got traffic generation. So this is getting people from somewhere to your website. So those blue boxes. So social media marketing, for example, is one way of driving traffic from an external source to your website, whether it be Facebook business pages, whether it be Instagram stories, Pinterest boards, TikTok videos, whatever it is, this is a channel to drive traffic to your website. Down below at the bottom, we have paid advertising. So this is like digital, digital marketing as far as like buying adverts, as we said before here, through Google, so that you appear on the first page of the search engine results. This can also be Facebook, purchasing Facebook ads as well. It can also be programmatic advertising, which uses algorithms to pick people similar to your current audience. But what we're focusing on here is organic search or search engine optimization. So all of these channels are designed to drive traffic, potential customers to your website. Once they're on your website, the idea then is that we have enough content, we have enough calls to action, we have enough information for people to make a decision about your organization and what they're going to do next. Now, what they do next, right, can be different for every single business. So if you are selling stationery, for example, it might be to sell them something straight away. However, if you were running a gym, for example, it might be to get them to sign up to a free week membership. So whatever that conversion is different for every business. But that's fundamentally what the next step is. Once people are at your website, what we want to do is convert them. Okay, we want to get them to take some form of action. As that for every business, that's different. In this instance, what it could be is that you entice people to join your email subscription list, so that you can continue to market to people over time. You can drip feed them content and information. And that's commonly referred to as email marketing. So you can see the circle here. We go from my website, conversion to email marketing to your website, back again. So the idea is this continuous flow of people over time back to your website, with the ultimate goal of, once they've moved through, and I don't want to go into, but once they've moved through the sales funnel, if you like, from prospect to lead to customer, they eventually make a buying decision. So you're leading them that way. And organic search, SEO, is one of those methods to get those leads to your website to become a prospect. The other thing that we have next to conversion rate optimization here is analysis. So analysis is looking at the results of our search engine optimization and the other channels and seeing where we can make improvements, right? Do we change the copy on a button? Do we change the color? Do we move the form to the top of the page? Those types of things can have a big impact upon how many people will convert from a prospect into a customer. And I'm just going to touch on one more thing here, is this idea of remarketing. So let's just say that you somebody types in a product that you sell, they end up on your website, okay, and they like the look of your products, and they decide to subscribe to your email list to get more information, and eventually they're going to make a buying decision. What you can also do is this concept of remarketing is, once they come to your website, you can actually set up a strategy whereby they will then see adverts related to your business because they've already visited your website. I don't know if you probably have all noticed it before, but sometimes you feel like you're being stalked by advertisements. You've been to a website and suddenly you start seeing that website all the time and adverts for that website. That's remarketing in action. So that's what that process is. So as you can see, SEO is one of the fundamental steps, and it's probably one of the most valuable steps in getting quality traffic to your website, and from then you go into your whole digital marketing strategy around how you convert people. So next question is, why SEO? So on average, organic search, so this is people coming from Google search engines or Bing, represents 53% of all traffic. So it's over half of all the traffic that comes to websites comes from search engines. So that's the power of search engine optimization and why it is fundamental to all businesses. It builds trust and authority. So what I mean by this is there are two different types of marketing. You can call it push versus pull, or outbound versus inbound. So push marketing is traditional advertising. It's interruption advertising. It's like a television ad on the television. It's the radio ad between songs. It's the pop-up ad on a website, for example. Whereas pull marketing is attraction marketing. So it's using content and the authority and expertise of your business to attract people to it. And that's what SEO does. It attracts people to your business rather than putting your brand in front of them and interrupting what they're doing. So that's the two fundamental differences. The other huge advantage of search engine optimization and the traffic that comes from it is that these people are already in the buying cycle. They're already searching for what you have. So you don't need to convince them to come to your website in this instance. They're already at that stage where they're looking for a solution to their problem. So you're not just scattering advertising out there hoping that somebody's looking for a solution. With SEO, people are actively searching for solutions that you provide, and hence why you've already cut off, the first one or two steps in that whole sales cycle, because these people are looking for what you have. And there's also the long-term benefits. Unlike a advertising campaign that might run for 3 or 6 months or whatever it happens to be, SEO goes on forever. As long as you maintain it and keep up to date, it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So you put the investment in initially, and then it will continue to work over time. And then you might need to tweak it a little bit here, tweak it a little bit there, and you find that once you see the results from it, then you can reinvest into more SEO to even build greater benefits for your visitors, and obviously then greater benefits for yourself. And obviously with all of the modern tools that we have available to us these days, is that unlike previously where it was very difficult sometimes to measure where people came from, why they came, what they were looking for, with websites and the tools that we have available to us today, and like, for example, Google Analytics, when you install that on your website, it's really easy to track exactly how people came to your website and why. And once you have that information, you can refine your offer to people or your content to make sure that you answer all of their questions. And once again, if we feed back into that idea of conversion rate optimization, which is a different topic, but it's about making sure that you tweak and maximize the content and the experience on your website to turn more people from browsers into buyers, basically. And it's really cost effective. So there's been some talk around, like, on average, you really want, like, if we talk about return on investment, we've got things, there's like, for every dollar that you spend, you want, you know, $5 in return, for example. Okay, that's a healthy return on investment. There's been studies done with SEO where a $1 spent can often equal $15 or $20 in return on investment, depending upon the competition in the marketplace. So the other businesses similar to yours that are also actively pursuing an SEO strategy. But it has an extremely profitable return on investment ratio given the right circumstances. So I'm going to go into more detail now about each of these ranking factors so you get a better idea about it. Andy, any questions at this point? Everything fine?
I've got a question from Athena here, who has asked, does the search engine see video content any better than written copy?
No, it doesn't understand the words that are in the video. However, you can transcribe videos so that information is alongside the video. But what it's looking for is signals back from. So let's take YouTube as like the second largest search engine in the world behind Google. So YouTube is a video search engine. The signals that are being sent there that are valuable are how many people are viewing the video, how many people are linking to the video, how many likes is that video getting, what is the synopsis of that video. So all of those signals and triggers is what puts the value into the video itself. So once again, the idea is to serve your audience first, which video does extremely well, but then its popularity and its how many links it gets will then drive it up in the search rankings. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and the extension of that was, do the captions work? Is it better to have a transcript alongside?
I personally, yes. I think a transcript alongside is, and even from if you look at the usability standards, so there's a set of standards out there, the WCAG, I think it is, about usability for people who might be vision impaired or hearing impaired or whatever it might be, is that any video should have a transcript, associated with it. And audio the same as well. So it is a great idea to include transcripts with your video content.
Yeah, that's all I've got at the moment. But please, if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments and we'll answer them as we go along.
Just on some of the other content, like PDF documents and stuff, they are indexed. So it does, the bot will go to your website, it will go to the PDF and it will scan through it, because PDFs, and I don't want to get too technical, I think is like a PostScript, like an old printer style PostScript language, but the content is still in there for it to read. So it can still see the content. So the keys to factors and signals for SEO ranking are, and the acronym is EAT. So it's expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. So what is expertise? So it's using content on your website to demonstrate you have the necessary knowledge and skills in a particular area. So this could be blog articles on different types of stretching modalities, if you like, for remedial massage. It could be recipes from a restaurant. It could be any of those types of things that demonstrates to your audience that you have the necessary skills in a particular area. And then that information is picked up by Google, and as and then it uses that as saying, well, you're the best website to recommend to people who are entering these particular search terms. Authority. So this is the thing, are you the best choice for Google to recommend to searchers? And then we talked about that before, is like, you need to be able to, and that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to convince Google that your website is the very best choice amongst all of the competition. And let me say, just to talk about the competition, I think you'll be surprised at how many opportunities are out there, because like yourselves who've come this evening to learn more about SEO, there are a lot of people out there who are not doing as much as they could be doing. And you only have to be a little bit better than your competition to rank above them. So you don't have to be a mile in front. You just have to be a bit better than them at what you're doing to then rank higher than them. So it's not an all or nothing proposition. And trustworthiness. So, I mean, this is a tough one, but it's honest, unbiased, and thoughtful presentation of content. Once again, focus on your audience. What are their questions? What are their pain points? What can you provide that's going to help them with a problem? That's fundamentally what your content needs to do. Secure and accessible. So now we're going to delve into individual elements. So what does secure and accessible mean? So secure means that, and accessible means that your site is well designed. So it's been well structured. The code is well implemented, and and you've ticked all the boxes of the things that Google wants to see. This includes things, and I don't want to get too technical about it, but things like what's called a robots.txt file. Now, this is what your web developer and your SEO specialist will be able to help you with. And also you can do it yourself. A robots.txt file basically says when a bot arrives on your website, you can look at these pages, but you can't look at these pages. So the idea is you use this file to make sure that all of the relevant information on your website is actually being indexed correctly. Having a sitemap. So whilst the bot comes to your website and it will traverse your menu structure and then try and work out the structure of your website by following all of the links, one way you can short circuit that is by having a sitemap. So most, and I suspect that many people have a WordPress website. A lot of these are built, are created by default, but you can actually go and tweak them or make sure they're actually being produced. So a sitemap is basically just a long list of all the links within your website. Once again, a little bit technical, but HTTPS and SSL is, you know, when you see the little padlock on a website, that is HTTPS and SSL. That is indicating that your website is encrypted and that any transactions between your website and somebody viewing your website, nobody else can interfere with. It's pretty much mandatory these days that your website be encrypted, and it's pretty much standard as well. So if you've had a website developed in the last few years, it will most likely have an SSL certificate attached to it, which means that it is encrypted. Another one that's become really important, a ranking factor in Signal in the last few years, is page load speed. As people's attention spans have diminished, they won't take the time. They won't spend the time to wait for a website to load. So typically these days, if your website doesn't load in 3 seconds or less, then people are just going to bounce off and go to a competitor. So you want to make sure that your website is loading as fast as possible. There's lots of different contributing factors to that. It can be where your website is hosted, so your website hosting. It can be also things like the technology that's been used to build your website. It could be you might have a lot of superfluous information or plugins in your website that you don't need, which is slowing it down. So there's all these sort of factors that you can go through to actually speed up the experience for your users.
Kim, sorry, just before you move on, what about Large image files used to always be one that slowed down a website. Is that still a current factor?
Yeah, it happens a lot. So what happens is somebody like a graphic designer will grab a Photoshop file and they'll output it as 100% JPEG, so a particular type of picture, and it'll be 500 kilobytes inside, which is half a meg, which is on a website is a large file, okay? Because that file is being designed to maybe go into a brochure, or it's been designed to go into some sort of printed collateral. What you need to do is you need to take that image and you need to shrink it down as far as the quality is concerned, because once it goes onto the screen, you can't really see the level of detail that you might see in a printed publication, for example. So when you get an image like that, you should always make sure it's the right size, which means that it should be, if the image needs to be 500 pixels wide and 500 pixels high for your blog article, then that's the size that you should put it into your website. So you should use Photoshop or GIMP or any of those photo or image manipulation tools to make sure the image is at the right size. Don't upload it and then have then crop the image, because the image is still the same size. So you want to make sure it's at the right resolution, and then play with the quality settings. So 65% compression, compared to 80% compression. The difference might be minimal, but it might be a saving of 100 kilobytes, which is huge. So I try to keep images like 100K kilobytes or less when I upload them to a website, because they do tend to drag down the initial load of the website. And I don't want to go, there's other things like caching and stuff like that, which can be used to speed up the website, which means that instead of going to your website and like loading the entire page and running through all the logic of the page, what it does is the web server will just give you a copy that's already been created previously, and it'll just send you back that copy rather than going through the process of building the page. So these are different things, but these are all techniques that you should look at to make sure that your website is speeding up. And image size is often a problem with websites. And mobile friendliness. So I think we touched on that before. This is making sure that your website is what's called responsive, which means that if I look at it on my mobile or on a tablet or a desktop, my website looks fantastic. It works well, and it's scaled correctly, and everything, just works as you would expect on the different types of devices. And that all happens in the background. So websites need to be designed to be responsive. So when somebody creates your website, the designers and the technical people will sit down and say, okay, how do we need to move these elements around to make sure that they look and perform well on different types of devices? And I'll show an example of that in a second. So content optimization, this is fundamental. And this is probably the first thing that people need to do, is look at the content on their website. Step one is understand your audience. Are you providing content that resonates with your audience? Is it answering a question or a pain point? So that's what's going to draw people to your website, is that does your content satisfy the intent of what they're looking for? That comes down to keyword research. Now, a lot of you will be experts in a particular niche or field, and I often say this, is that you will forget more about what you do than anybody else will ever know. So you're not often the best person to try and work out what the keywords and phrases are for your audience, because they might be using something completely different than what you think it should be, because they're coming from a position of ignorance, if you like, of less experience as compared to yourself. So keyword research is about looking for those phrases and terms and questions that people ask in search engines, seeing what's popular and then including those keywords and phrases into your content, into your website. So then Google goes, I see that you've got these keywords and phrases placed strategically through your website. I've looked at the content, I've looked at the backlinks. You have a fantastic article on this particular subject. I'm going to show that to people. I mean, that's going to be the first thing that I show them. So that's why keyword research is, probably the fundamental pillar of search engine optimization, making sure that you have the right words in the right context in the right place. Now, I just want to show you this idea here. So of keyword research, the idea is what we're looking for is high value, low competition. And what I mean by this is we want to find those keywords and phrases that that people are looking for that generate quite a bit of traffic, but there's not a lot of other businesses that are targeting those keywords. They don't have those keywords in their content. So this is, Andy, where we need some audience participation. So I've got a keyword tool here that we use. And so this is a keyword magic tool. Can you give me a search term, something you might look for, or somebody give me something?
How about coffee? Buy coffee beans, West Footscray.
Buy coffee beans. How about buy coffee beans? Because I'm not sure who's going to pick up West Footscray.
I have an interest in this search term, so I just thought I'd throw that one out there myself. Now,
this is also commonly referred to as a long tail keyword, which means that it's not just one word. It's not just coffee. Okay, so it's buy coffee beans. So the intent here is a lot more focused and targeted. The word coffee, as you can imagine, there's going to be a huge amount of competition for the word coffee. There's just going to be millions of sites that are going to have the word coffee in them. But buy coffee beans, that's limiting down what people are looking for. So I'm just going to hit search here. So without going into a huge amount of detail, here's the search term that we entered. This is the volume of traffic that you can expect per month if you were the #1 ranking website. Okay, so if you're #1 in the search results in Google, that's what you can expect, is 720 visitors from that particular phrase. The next thing that's really important is this indicator here, which is how difficult, what's the competition like for this particular keyword or phrase? And it's ranked out from 0 to 100. 38 is pretty good. So this could be a keyword and phrase that you might want to incorporate into your website, onto a landing page. So you might set up a dedicated page that just opens up with where, buy coffee beans in West Footscray, or buy coffee beans from us, or whatever it might be, or why you should buy coffee beans from us. As long as that phrase appears in the content, this is going to be a signal to the Google search engine. Now, if we look further down, there are location-based ones as well. So here we've got where to buy coffee beans in Sydney, where to buy coffee beans in Perth. These get okay traffic, but it's really quite low competition. So this is what you've got to weigh up, is you go, okay, I really can't compete on the word coffee, because there's going to be a lot of sites out there that have been around for a long time that have hundreds of thousands of pages worth of information. I can't compete in that area. What I need to do is find my niche, find my longer tail keywords, and then look at the competition. So this figure here compared to the volume of traffic that I can get. And then we talk about conversion rates. So if 10 people come from this and our conversion rate was 10%, that's 11 new customers, as an example. So that's what we're looking at, is what's the biggest bang for my buck? Where can I be most competitive? Does that make sense, Andy?
Yes, and also I've got a question from Kelly, who's asked, which might be a step backwards for us here. How many words should there be on a web page for Google? I'm assuming that applies to landing pages and things as well. How many words should there be on a web page?
Enough to get your message across. They've done some research. Now, not everything, because it used to be a time when people would post up 300, 400 word articles, and they just smash out this daily, these really short things. However, you can't do a lot of 300 or 400 words. What can you tell somebody that has any depth to it in 300 or 400 words. Okay, these days, and then it talks about keyword density. So if you have a 300 or 400 word article, let's say you took a blog post, for example, with 300, 400 words in it, and then you use a search term in there like 10 times, Google's going to put up a red flag and say that's what's called keyword stuffing, which is you're trying to shove that phrase or keyword into a really small amount of text. Okay, and that used to be effective, 15 years ago. Now that is a negative. To be honest, the research at the moment is articles of 2,000 words is where it's at. So, these are in-depth pieces of content that provide a lot of value for the reader. And they might be supported by a video. They might have a downloadable PDF checklist. It may have with it an exercise guide. It might include a infographic. These are the types of things that people are looking for, not these 400 or 500, word sort of brain dumps, if you like. They need to have more guts to them, more meat on them to be to rank highly with Google. And that's just become more because I think everybody jumped on the content sort of creation bandwagon and was just smashing stuff out. And then it was like, well, we're just getting flooded with too much information. We need to sift through what is the wheat from the chaff, if you like. What is valuable content as compared to somebody who's just putting stuff out because they need to meet a schedule. Does that satisfy that question? Yeah, I think. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I have another question from Athena here, just asking about the keyword, excuse me, magic tool that you're using. But I think you're going to cover some free tools at the end. Is that correct?
I do. That one's a professional paid tool. Anybody, but it's like about $200 a month for something like that, and then it just goes up from there because they know that if you get this right, the return on investment puts that in. That investment becomes insignificant to a certain degree. But there are a bunch of free tools that we can use to get going with our search engine optimization. And once you start to see some results, then you can shift gears, if you like, into other different tools as you go along. But the learning curve on some of them is quite. It can be, some are easier than others. Just on the content size and things like that, 2,000 words, that seems like a lot. Personally, I would rather write one 2,000 word article a month than 500 word article every week. That I think it just has more value and gravitas than doing this stuff. And honestly, and you don't have to be, the greatest copywriter in the world. You don't need to be, a literary genius to write content. You just need to start with an outline, then just start filling it in, and then show it to somebody within your audience and say, does this answer a problem or does this help you in some way? So you don't need to be a literary genius to write content. You just need to get started. A lot of people have writer's block and things like that. I find myself is if I just write down bullet points of what I want to talk about, and then I just start writing ideas in between them, and eventually they just sort of coalesce into something that works. So, and then you just chop and change stuff as you go. So we'll move forward. Technical SEO. So this is the bits about checking the technical list with Google, saying, okay, you've met all of the technical requirements that makes your website easy for me to understand. So things like page titles. So page titles are what appear, so I'll just refresh this one. So I don't know if you can see just at the top there on the tab, that's the page title. So that is one of the signals to Google to indicate what your website is about, what this particular page is about. Meta descriptions. So meta descriptions is a piece of information that isn't really used by Google itself. Where meta descriptions actually appear is this content here on search result pages, that's your meta description. If you don't put something into your page, a meta description into your page, then Google is just going to grab the first paragraph of text that it finds, and it may not be relevant. I mean, I've seen heaps of times that the content, the first bit of content on the page might have just been the address details, and that gets put onto the meta description. This description here needs to encourage people to click the link. So this is sort of where the copywriting, you've got 180 characters or whatever it is to write a piece of copy that's going to encourage somebody to click this link. Choose your link as compared to the one above it or the one below it. So this is not that important to Google, but it's important for the people that are looking at these research results to make a decision. All modern websites allow you to go and change your meta description. So if you look, WordPress, if you're using WordPress, or you're using Joomla, or you're using whatever it is, or Wix, or any of those website builders will have the ability to go and edit the meta descriptions.
And Kim, another question here: should you put metadata for every blog post or article that you write?
I would, yep, because the other thing too is that people don't just come to your website from your homepage. You'll find that a huge amount of your traffic is going to come to individual popular pages on your website. It might be a calendar of events. It might be a particular blog post. So they come from lots of different angles. And once they arrive on your website, then they might decide, based on what they've seen, to then investigate further. Hence why you've really only got one chance to impress people. So if you write good meta descriptions for each of your pages, then that gives you the best chance of getting more click-throughs and therefore generating more traffic. So I would certainly, if compared to allowing it to happen manually or automatically, I would do it manually, because once again, you've only got 180 characters or whatever it is to work with. So you've really got to be succinct with your message. If you allow it to automatically generate, the first paragraph in your content might just be a preamble about, hey, you know, it might just be a setup paragraph about what the content's about, but it doesn't actually answer any questions or doesn't drive somebody to read the content, whereas that's what your meta description should do. So in summary, yes, I would take the time to write proper meta descriptions for each. And in fact, what you can do is you set up a Word template, you write your content, and above in the Word template is you have a meta description box where you take the time to write that alongside your article as well at the same time.
And Kim, just a very quick one here. Do you have off the top of your head an example of somewhere of good meta descriptions? Anything in particular to look at? That's from Karen.
I can provide some information, but you know, the best thing that good copywriting is good copywriting. So there's some fundamentals to it, and there's a book. I'll provide it in the notes. There's a particular book by a famous copywriter that just boils down what makes for a good subject line, meta description, email, you know, subject, those types of things. But it's usually, you need to understand the intent of the person that's coming to that page. Like I'm looking, and you can't rely on things like quality or service or any of those sort of buzzwords as a driver for people, because quality can only be experienced after the fact. Once I've bought from you, then I will know if it's a quality experience or not. I can't just trust that that's what you're going to deliver. So it needs to be what is the unique selling proposition, if you like, of that piece of content. You know, what is it about that piece of content that is different than the competition, if you like? Why should I click your piece of content as compared to the one above or below? So, and a lot of that comes down to behavioral, you know, fear of missing out, things like social signals. You know, there's famous studies about how to get people to dispose of things correctly, they use terms like 60% of your colleagues have disposed of this stuff correctly. You know, sort of like encouraging you to do the right thing just because of the social signals associated with it. So these are the types of things that you need to think about. So that really is, that's probably the most difficult thing, is to write those punchy, 2-line descriptions of the content to get people interested straight away. Headings, technical SEO. I don't want to, once again, go into too much detail, but your web pages themselves boil down to two things. There's this thing called HTML, which is hypertext markup language, and CSS, which is cascading style sheet. Those two technologies is what makes your website appear on people's phones or in their browser. Okay, so it's the underlying technology, if you like, the languages that make websites come to life. Now, in HTML, we have things called headings. H1, H2, H3, H4, and that is the hierarchy, if you like. So H1 is the most important heading, then H2 is a subheading, H3 is a subheading, so on and so forth. So every single page that you have on your website should have a H1 heading. Okay, so it's the main heading of that page. Then your content should be designed in such a way that it's broken up into subheadings, which are H2, and if necessary, H3s, which is the next level down. The reason for that is twofold. Is firstly, it makes it easy for Google to understand what's important. Because if you've made something a heading, obviously that's an important piece of content, piece of writing. But it also gives a logical hierarchy to the information. But from a human point of view, we look at things in a hierarchical way. If it's just one long slab of text, then people don't really know what it's about, because most people will, when they're reading something on, whether it be an email or a website, are going to start from the top. They're going to flick all the way down looking at the headings to get an idea of what this is about, see if my question is going to be answered, and then they're going to go back to the top and start reading. Okay, so that's why having this logical heading structure is really important. As an example, so I was looking, because we're going to 10% superannuation guarantee as of the 1st of July. I was doing some research about superannuation, and Australian Super happened to turn up as one of the top results. But then I started digging down into some of their articles, and you can see a good example here. So that's their H1, then H2, and then this is a H3. So there's this logical structure of the content, and you could scan this content and look at it and go, I know what that's about. That's interesting to me. I'm going to continue reading. So that's why this is important, not only from Google reading the page itself, but also for your human visitors to understand what your content's about. But it needs to be in that structure: H1, H2, H3. Alt tags. The Google bot, when it comes to your website, as you can imagine, it can't see, not like we can. It can't see the content on your page. All it's doing is landing on your page and then processing the words. It's like its own little browser. So with all of your pictures, it's a really good idea, because it can't see the pictures. You need to provide what's called an alt tag, which is a description of what the image is. Okay, then that will contribute to the content on the page. If it doesn't know what the image is, it has no value to the search engine, because as I said, it can't see it. If the name of the image is image5.jpg and there's no alt description, then what does this image mean? However, if the image was sunset on Hampton Island, and that was the alt tag, then it understands, and if you're a travel company, that understands exactly what that image is about. So that's really important as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Kim, is there a quick? I know everyone's in a hurry often when we're doing some of these jobs. Is there a quick, easy way to make an effective alt tag that you can you just nick one from your heading or something like that? Is there a quick way to do that will still be effective if you haven't got the time to sit down and really think about it?
Some of them will grab it from the title of the image. So if you do Sunset dash Hampton Island, then it will use that as the alt tag. So, but what I like to do is you really need like a content script, right? So you write it out in Word or in Google Docs or whatever it is, and then you put all your images in there, you name them correctly, so they've got a really descriptive name. And sometimes it's even a good idea to add things like the pixel size at the end, like 500 by 500. So you know where it needs to go and what its size is. So rather than you can just look at the title, understand exactly what this image is and how big it is, for and which makes it easy to upload. And then along with your meta description at the top of your article, then your article content, then you include the images that you're going to use, and then you provide an alt tag. And then you just cut and paste those straight out of Word, because you've done all that, and into WordPress or into any of your content editors. So it can be done automatically, but once again, it's best to spend the time up front to make sure it's got the best possible best possible implementation. So the user experience, click-through rate. So this is the number of people that come to your website from the search engines. The bounce rate is, what's the experience like when they get to your website? If somebody comes to your website and then leaves straight away, that is a signal that there might be something that's not quite right with your website. However, it's not always the case. Imagine that somebody had a specific problem, like maybe it was a medical problem and they were doing some research, okay, and they found this article and all they did was read the article and then they got the information they needed and they left, okay? But if somebody bounces off within the first 10 or 15 seconds, there may be an issue, okay, and that can be a negative impact on the website and its ranking in Google. And the time on website is, how long does somebody stick around on your website? Do they just read for a minute and leave, or do they stay for 3 or 5 minutes? Now, as an example of that, I've got this page open here. So what we're looking at here is Google Analytics. So this is a free tool that you can install on your website that tracks all of the traffic that comes to your website, where they go, what they look at, how long they stay there. And what we can see from these examples here is that the bounce rate of this website, which is a Google demo website, is 47%. That means that 47% of all the traffic that comes to this website bounces off within the first 10 or 15 seconds, just off the first page. But then 53% hang around to look at more content. The average session duration, so how long are they on my website? In this instance, 3 minutes 16, and they look at about 5 pages. So these are all really important triggers and factors and signals to Google to indicate, what's your user experience like? How much value are people getting out of your website? Are they coming and bouncing off, or are they coming and reading content? So improving these stats is a way of improving your search engine optimization. Links. Inbound links, which we touched on previously, is external websites that find valuable content on your website and then link back to it. Let's say you've written a wonderful article, somebody reads it and goes, this is awesome, and then they write a blog post on their website and they just reference back to you. And every time you get one of these links coming back to your website, it's like a vote saying that this is good work, this is great stuff, this answered my question. So the more inbound links that you can get, the better off. Now, there's a caveat for that. There's an idea called black hat SEO, which is trying to fool Google into thinking that your website is more popular than it actually is. These are things like what are called link farms. They're basically bogus websites that are set up, right, to link back to your website, but they actually damage your reputation. You should never use those types of things. If somebody says to you, I can get you on the first page of Google and I'm going to use these linking directories, it's usually bogus and it'll actually damage your reputation. So inbound links from authoritative sites is very, very valuable to your website. Conversely, outbound links. If you found content on the web that your audience might be interested in, you should also link from your website to their website, because that also indicates to Google that you are thinking about your audience, that you're trying to provide a valuable experience, but referencing other people's content, other people's material. So you should also consider that as well. I wouldn't send people to direct competitors, obviously, but supporting or complementary organizations or businesses, absolutely. And internal links. This goes back to how easy is it to navigate your website, both from a Google perspective and from a human perspective. The internal links is, if you've written 2 articles, does one article reference the other article? So there's a natural transition between, let's say it's a 4-week diet program which links to a 4-week exercise program, and they link backwards and forwards between each other. And what that does is shows Google how your content interrelates and what the hierarchy is. But it's also, once again, providing valuable information for your visitors, because it's making it easy for them to explore your website. So it's always a good idea to reference content internally. So I think we're all coming to a close here. So what we're going to talk about in this last section, I think, is what is local SEO, which I think will be very valuable to a lot of businesses that have a physical location or locations. So what is local SEO? So local SEO is the practice of increasing search visibility of brick and mortar business, those with physical locations. So the idea is you want to get people from your website into your store. Same SEO fundamentals still apply. Everything that we've talked today, still the same. Everything remains the same. However, content should include a local focus. So what I mean by that is that you might include a local event calendar. You might talk about your sponsorship of local sporting teams. You might create links between yourself and a number of complementary local businesses, for example. You might write a report about a local event. Those types of things. You want to have a local bend, if you like, or bent towards your content. Make sure you use the suburb names, for example. NAP, name, address, and phone number, needs to be consistent everywhere. So the name of your business, your address, and your phone number needs to be consistent across everything that you do, because these are all signals back to Google that this is your correct physical location. So there's social media, business directory listings, your website, so on and so forth. Local links. There's heaps of opportunities to get your business listed in external directories, and these are reputable external directories. It could be business directories, local partners, local newspapers. We just have one more quick audience participation. What's the name of a local business? Who'd like to be the guinea pig?
Come on, here's your chance. Let's pop a local business in the comments thread. First one in wins.
GG, what is it? Tooth powder.
GG tooth powder. Is that that's a local business, Karen? I
got G. No, that's a tooth.
GGLife.com.au.
No, that one's not being GG Life. Is that a physical location?
So Karen, if you can take your put your microphone on if you'd like.
Hi.
Hello. What's the actual business? The actual registered business name?
The Wellness Keeper.
Wellness Keeper. Wellness.
But the brand it's different. So.
No, I'm not seeing that one either. I think we're going to need to go with something else. I was going to put Australian Website Services in, but I'm not sure I should do that. Because, you know, was it cobbler's children are always the last ones to get new shoes?
We've got Hobson's Bay Health Group.
Okay, let's try Hobson's Bay Health Group. Hobson's Bay Health Group. Okay. Blackshaws Road, Altona North, is that correct? So what this tool is going to tell us is what external sites and directories we should be listing with to promote our business. So around me, you're present on a few here. I assume that's Kelly. iGlobal, NDrive. Depends on whether or not these are Show Me Local. So these are all potential places that your business can be listed. Now, not all of them are going to be relevant, but these are all potential places that your business could be listed, which will then drive local traffic to your website, because that's what they're designed for, is to provide resources and business directory listings. So that's really important. That's another step in the whole local SEO, is making sure that your business is consistently, like if you're a restaurant, you should be on, you know, Yelp and all of those types of directory listing products. And, you know, fundamentally, Google My Business listing. If you don't have one of these and you have a bricks and mortar business, you need to get one like yesterday, because the way that these work is that if we go back to this concrete driveway bit, this thing up the top here is called a map pack. Okay, so it's always 3 business listings in the local area. Okay, and that's driven by the My Business listing. So if you don't have one of those, it's really unlikely that you're ever going to appear in this section. So I would say if you take anything out of today and you have a bricks and mortar business, a physical location, this, you know, this Google business listing, which is, here's an example here. You just need a Gmail account. You can log on and then you can claim your business and fill out all the details, your opening hours, address details, website, social media channels, all of those things. So and anybody can do this. So that would be my #1 takeaway if you do have a physical store. Moving forward. Oh, just one last point on local SEO. One of the stats, and I was doing some research, 78% of local mobile searches result in an offline purchase. So if somebody's doing a local, like massage near me, or you know, a restaurant near me or something like that, 78% of these searches where they click through will actually result in a purchase. So they'll come to your store, they'll come to your location. So it's hugely important for all local businesses. Improve your SEO to get more customers. What you can do right now. So these are some of the things that you can do tomorrow to start looking at improving your website. And this is just some of the tools that you can use. You can do an SEO audit for free on your website using a tool called Google Lighthouse. Okay, so you just, when you get this presentation, go and have a look at it. And what it'll do is it'll process your website and start looking at things like how fast it is it optimized at all? Is it, you know, is it usable? Does it meet the standards that are required by Google? You can do all of this preliminary work, so you can work out where you should probably look at first to make some improvements. Your page speed. There's a tool called Pingdom. Once again, it's free. Considering doing the Hobson's Bay one, shall we do a test on Hobson's Bay? So I'm going to run a test on Hobson's Bay and see how it goes. So I'm just going to come back to this in a second. It's just going to run this test and see how fast it is. And then we have keyword analysis. What can we do in the short term to start looking at what are possible keywords and phrases that our visitors or that are popular in search engines that could drive traffic to our website. There's a great one called Answer the Public, and this is all about search intent. These are questions like, how do I lose weight? Where's the best restaurants? Those types of questions. Now I've got one open here where I just typed in the word workout, because obviously a lot of gyms and stuff are closed at the moment, which is a real pain. So people are looking for alternatives, or maybe they need to do online classes. But I just used to put the term workout into this tool, and it comes back with all of these questions that people are entering into search engines, like how workout at home, how workout equipment. I'll switch the thing here. What else have we got here? Are workout bands effective? You know, those elastic bands that you can use. So there's a whole wealth of information here for free that tells you what people are looking for. And then it's your job to write content that appeals to these questions. So you can answer these questions. Let's see how that speed test went. Not bad, 76. So 76 out of 100. So I suggest what you do is you go and you put your website in here and check it. Anything under 70%, it probably needs some work. Uber Suggest is another tool that you can look at, which is by a gentleman by the name of Neil Patel, who's a bit of a legend in the industry, in the digital marketing and search engine optimization industry. And last but not least, if you have a Google account, you can also use what's called the Google Keyword Planner. It's usually used to create adverts. So you type in keywords to see how competitive it would be to create a Google ad, but you can obviously also use that tool to work out what are popular search terms and which has the least competition. And I think that might wrap it up, Andy. I mean, it's a lot of content to digest. So now is your opportunity to pose any questions.
All right, so we do have one here from a little bit earlier asking, so just a quick clarification with authoritative links. This means getting your website links published in established news sources / websites, so just anyone else's website, unless it's relevant to your business?
No, it really needs to be somehow relevant to your business, because every website out there has like a authority ranking, if you like. So how long has the domain name been around? How much traffic does it get? How authoritative does Google think that it has, because of the time and the amount of traffic that it gets and the amount of content relevant content it has? So if you are a motor mechanic and you got a link from a beautician, I doubt whether that's going to be helpful, because they're two very distinct, audiences. However, if there was a write-up in a car enthusiast blog to your mechanics business, that would be valuable. That would be quite valuable. But sometimes this stuff can be actually negative. Let's say you have an issue, right? And you might get a write-up in the paper, and because it has so much authority, is that whenever you type in your business name, boom, this negative article appears at the top. Okay, and that's called, and it's like reputation management. What you need to do then is you need to create more content, more sites, more alternatives to that negative publicity, if you like.
So it sounds very much like a proactive exercise, I guess, rather than waiting around and getting a bad review and then trying to fix it. It's more of a, if you're active and busy with your SEO, you're going to have more positive reference to you than you will from the odd negative. Yeah,
that's right. And I've seen it happen with, I won't go into details, but it was a pet transport company, and they had an issue where one of the pets had died on the flight. And if you look up their name, then the negative articles of that incident appear above their listings. and it's just using their brand name, which, as you can imagine, has quite negative impact. So what you need to do, and they've done, is create satellite sites and different things like that to then push that negative review or that negative article further down the listings.
We've got a question from Karen who'd like to know a little bit more about creating a sitemap. Is there a template to do it, or is that something we can create through the back end of our website platform?
Through the back end of your website platform. Most modern content management systems, whether it be WordPress or any of the page builders that you can use, will do that for you. Sometimes you might need to flick a few switches to make sure that it's produced, that it's output correctly and in the right location, but it is an automatic process, and that's one of the advantages of using a content management system like WordPress. There is a second step to that, however. So you've created your sitemap, and what you do is you include the location of that sitemap in your robot.txt file. Once again, that is often an automatic process, and you can go and check it out. But what you should also do is everybody should go out and create what's called a Google Search Console account. So if you've got a Gmail account, you look up the word Google Search Console, you can go and create an account with that service, and then you can actually upload your sitemap to that service, and that will actually push Google to come and index your site faster. So that's something proactive that you can do to make sure, let's say you write a bunch of new content and it's taking a while, because search engine optimization isn't an overnight thing. It can take weeks or months for you to start to see to start reaping the rewards, because Google has to come and index it. It needs to then evaluate it, and then, you know, and then rank it appropriately. A way that you can sort of kickstart that process is making sure that your sitemap is uploaded into this tool called Google Search Console, and it basically will then trigger Google to go and index your new pages, and that's what it does.
So Karen's extended that with, so an e-commerce platform like Shopify will already have sitemaps built in?
Yes, absolutely. So I've got accreditation, developer accreditation with Shopify, and yeah, the sitemap is generated automatically, and it's usually just in the root of your, you know, shopname.com.au/sitemap.xml. That's the location of the file. And because that is a managed service, Shopify is a managed service, which means Shopify cares of all the details of hosting the shops themselves. All of that stuff is taken care of in the back end.
And also the other part was, is it easy to work out how to upload the sitemap to a Google Search Console?
Yep, just on the left-hand side, there's a link that says sitemap, and then it will say paste your URL or your, you know, the link to your sitemap in here, and then you just press the go button, and then it processes it and it just displays you the list of all the links, and then it tells you if there's any issues with them. Because what that tool will do as well is it'll scan through your website looking for any technical issues. So it'll say, is there an error on this page? Like, I don't know if anybody's ever seen them, but broken links can probably be a problem sometimes. Let's say you've changed a page name or you've deactivated a blog post or something, but that link is still out there in the index. So if you wrote an article and then you said, oh, I don't like this and it's not relevant anymore, and you turned it off, that link is still indexed. So if somebody clicks on that link from a search result, they get what's called a 404 error, okay, which is page could not be found because you basically turned it off or deleted it. That is a negative signal back to Google, okay? What you're best to do in that situation is what's called a redirect. Once again, technical, you probably need somebody like myself or you know, a web developer, excuse me, to implement what are called redirects. That happens too when you re-platform or you move sites. So if you, excuse me, if you move from one website to another, so, and you have you completely rewrite your content and you redevelop the architecture, so you don't lose any of that authority that you've built up over time with your old site, you need to implement what are called redirects. So what it does is say, this page no longer exists, but this is the replacement. So it just points people from your old site to your new site. And you have to do that so that you don't get all these horrible 404 errors, page not found, and you maintain your ranking within Google. If you don't do that, you will fall through the ranking.
Thank you, Kim. And I've got another one suggested for home-based businesses. What do you suggest for home-based business / online business to put as a location on their business, on my business? Is it okay just to put a suburb?
Well, yes. I mean, if people understand that it's a home-based business, like if it's an online business, the physical location is often not that important. Same for me. I mean, I work from home, and if I just put my address and you looked it up in Google Maps, it would just be the picture of the front of my house. You know what I mean? And that's all you would see. You say, well, how professional is that? But once again, it comes down to the audience. Like if you were things online, or maybe let's say you were a psychologist, for example, or you were a web developer, or you were somebody that does all of their business online, having a suburb I think is fine without having. Eventually people can find your physical address anyway, because they're going to look up your business name or your APN. It's going to be there somewhere. But if it's not relevant to the services that you provide, I believe that the state and suburb is fine, because if that's what people need to know. Do I need to know that you're in Melbourne or in Footscray or something like that? But once again, it depends on where your audience is. I mean, if you do everything online, one thing that is annoying about only online businesses, sometimes there's no way of contacting them. You know what I mean? There's just no information whatsoever. I'm always a strong believer in, if you should provide things like a phone number and a contact email address and a form and your location, because that provides authority that there's a human being that's going to be able to respond to their queries.
Thank you very much for that. And I think we might be pushing for time now, Kim, to get. So if there's any last minute questions, we'll take them now. Otherwise, we'll wrap up today's session. I'll just give people a chance for any last questions. All right. So Kim, thank you so much, Kim, for the session today. I hope that everyone got a lot out of it. Thank you for everyone for coming along. Some practical things that you can introduce tomorrow when you get back to doing what you do. Please fill in the survey with the link that I provided in the comments thread there, and give us a little bit of feedback on what you thought of the session. And if there's anything else that you'd like to hear about in the future, we'd like to hear about that as well. Maybe we can run some other workshops in the future. So thank you so much, Kim Oberauer from Australian Website Services. And thank you everyone for coming. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next time.